Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn of the Versus Virus Incubator. I hope you've had great weekly progress sessions and you're moving forward successfully. Today, as you know, we have somebody very special. We have Peter Horvath with us, and he will be telling you his secrets on how to craft a unique value propositions. So get ready to munch and learn. Peter, take it away, please.
All right, perfect. Hello, everybody. Happy to be here. I don't know, Bilian, if you want to address the first few slides in the presentation, or we should just get to the value proposition slide.
Let's go straight to the value proposition.
All right. So today, as Biliana mentioned, we will be talking about value propositions. I'm super happy to be here on this Friday session. So we can jump to slide 5. That would be great. And I will specifically want to address the where, the what, the how, and the when of value propositions. And so those will be the 4 main areas that we'll be exploring. If you can go to the next slide, first a few thoughts about why I'm worth listening to. My name is Peter Horvath. I work under the moniker Holistic.Design. I'm a consultant. I have been active in digital and human-centered roles for over 17 years in both enterprise, startup, consulting setups. I also lead Geneva's largest meetup around the areas of digital strategy and user experience. I also co-founded the Service Design Network's Swiss chapter. And just recently in June, we did 24 Hours of UX, an event with a partner of mine, Jesse Anton, where we had 7,000 participants. And I recently graduated from EPFL's Executive MBA program. So I have a broad experience that I'm pulling from in order to help you with your progress. And I also wanted to mention specifically around this topic is that I want the world to come out of COVID situation stronger rather than weaker. And I think one big part to this is cooperation. And where I can, I also do my part. I offer my help to organizations, specifically in these areas of digital strategy, service design, and user experience design. And I want to help, build services that are worth creating and are worth experiencing, both for the audiences and for the companies who are doing it. And I think that products and services should be looked at holistically. What I mean by that is both, the relationship between its elements need to be explored, as well as how a service interacts with its wider context. And Biliana reached out to me specifically to talk about value propositions because, I use my broad experience to look at topics from many perspectives. And I try to explain things, complex things, in an easy to understand manner. And, I do want to add that I am not the expert. We are the experts, you, your audiences, and myself together. So if we go to the next slide, we can jump right into where do value propositions fit into the wider context. I wanted to start with this just so that you can build a mind map around where you think this belongs. So if you go to the next slide, I know that the previous sessions included online project management, legal, and fundraising. Those are, I see, as really the basis of the project. And build on that, you also have these other topics: business models, user testing, and measuring impact, which you already talked about in previous sessions. And value propositions really fit into this, meaty part of your products and services, and very closely interact with all of these. And we will touch upon these elements later on as well. If you go to the next slide, I do want to point out that there is more to this meat of a product or service than just these 4 areas. There's also the audience segmentation and targeting, prototyping and minimum viable products and services, experience and service design, usability, and many other areas that still sort of can be added on to this. And we're ready to look at the first thing on how these areas connect. If you go to the next slide, I stole this slide from, I think, last week's presentation on business models. So this is the lean canvas. And within the lean canvas, I highlighted the unique value proposition, customer segment areas, those two things are really what is required and really where the value proposition plays. And we'll delve into that a bit more later on. But this is just to show you that value propositions live within the business model. On the next slide, you'll see that value propositions fit into the wider. I think someone's unmuted. Yeah, thank you. So I think I also wanted to show how value propositions fit into not just this incubator program sessions, but also into a wider context. And the way that I see it is that it's like a vision, mission, strategy, value proposition, and manifestations area. Meaning that the vision is how you want to see the world, what you want to see the world to be. Mission is the part you play in it. Strategy is how you play that part. And value proposition is really bringing that to be tangible. And manifestations are what come out of that: taglines, websites, sales decks, and all that. If this is a bit fuzzy, I wanted to make it more tangible. So if you go to the next slide, this is the monologue that I told you a bit earlier. If you go to the next slide of this, the first two sentences, that's really the vision, that I want the world to come out of it stronger with cooperation. The next part is the mission, that I help out wherever I can in the areas of digital strategy, service design, and user experience design, and build services that are worth creating and experiencing. The next few sentences are my strategy, that I do this with a holistic approach, meaning that I look at the connections of a service within it itself, and also how it connects with the wider context of its ecosystem. And sort of a value proposition on the next slide is, that I look at things from many perspectives and try to make complex things easy to understand. And this is why I've been called in. Now you can already see that we are going from something that's wide, I'm trying to fit into the screen here, into something that becomes more and more narrow and specific. And at the end, next slide, something that comes out of all this is that I am not the expert, but we are the expert together. And I will hope that this will manifest on the next slides and minutes of this hour. So the next section is, what is a value proposition? Because, okay, Peter, now we kind of understand where this fits, but what is a value proposition? And on the next slide, I don't know which version we have here. Yeah, so value proposition is like your service dating your audience versus your service dreaming about your audience. And really what I mean with that is, just this connection. You cannot do this alone. You can dream alone, but you have to involve the other party on an actual date. You have to have a conversation. You can't have the same conversation with everyone, but you have to know who your audience is and who you are talking with. And it's important to be talking with someone and not talking to someone. So you cannot just talk. You have to both listen and talk. There's a saying that you have two ears and one mouth. Use them appropriately. So you have to often listen more than talk. And you cannot just make things up as you go. You have to know yourself and your priorities and the topic that you're talking about. And you cannot do just small talk. You have to have a goal, and that goal will evolve. On the first date, it will be just to get to know the other person, your audience, and that will evolve into something more. And finally, you cannot believe that you know everything around a topic. You have to change and adjust. And if you are a critical thinker, then right now you might be thinking, I just said that you need to know everything about the area, but you have to also be able to change. And that is true. And that is true also in dating, and more true in businesses. The reason is that you can live a life alone, even if it's not worth living, but you, as a business, you cannot exist without your customers. You will go out of business. So even more true to organizations than it is in dating, you have to be able to adjust what you do and how you do it. If we go to the next slide, that is about that value propositions need to be more than just words, promises, or sales. It is not just how you talk about your product or service, but it is improving the product and service to fit the audience. And a value proposition affects not only the communication, but also the function and usage of it and the customer retention, so ensuring that people come back. The reason I added that little asterisk there next to sales is that if sales is done right, then it fulfills all of these, because the feedback that the salespeople bring into the organization feeds back into the development loop, and affects what products or services a company brings to market. So these definitions are not set in stone. People will be thinking about them a bit differently, but my view, the really important piece here to remember is that it's not just about talking. It is really around being able to affect what you're actually building. And the next slide goes a bit into that, because value proposition is really this difference between a feature and a benefit. So illustrated here by user onboard's little illustration. I added the link to the original article. Your product is just one part of the equation. The audience that you are addressing with this product is the other part. And really what you need to be focusing on is what your audience member can become by using your product. So, your product shouldn't be in the focus, rather what your audience can achieve with it, like a Super Mario. And finally, on the next slide, a value proposition is like an ogre. And Shrek said that ogres are like onions. They have many layers. And this is what we will be looking at specifically in the next section, which is how to craft a value proposition. Because now I talked a bit about where it fits and what value propositions are, but how do you actually do one? So if you go to the next slide, this is the lean canvas that I showed with the two areas highlighted, the customer and the value proposition itself. These two elements are really crucially linked. And on the next slide, I'm showing the original canvas, the business model canvas created by Strategizer. And what Strategizer did, it's a company who the founder is based in Switzerland, and they first came out with the business model canvas, and then in a follow-up book, they came out with the value proposition canvas. Now, this is not to say that they came up with all the ideas around value propositions, nor is it that it is their book is the Bible on how to do it, but it's a really useful tool. And so we'll dive into that here in the rest of the day. As you can see, and there is this connection, this dating that I talked about. There's also both the customer piece and the value proposition piece consists of multiple elements. So this, layering like onions or ogres is included as well. And of course, there's this focus on the customer. So if you go to the next slide, there is this interplay, and I want to illustrate this with something, just a bit of movement, that you have the product and service, and you have the customer. It's the two sides who need to be cooperating. I'm just going back into the middle. And it's really sort of both of these things that you have to be looking at the same time. And what many people will be asking, and this happens in hackathons, in startups, in large organizations as well, which came first? Did I have an idea and I have to find a customer for it, or did I observe a customer or a specific pain and I'm addressing that with a product? And if you go to the next slide, I'm showing that is really a chicken and egg kind of problem. There's no answer to it. And it's like you will have a product and you'll try to find a customer for it, or you start from the customer, but one will affect the other. But what I do recommend is, at one point, you will have an audience in mind. And at that point, and let's go to the next slide, I propose to burn your product. Not literally, of course, but in your mind. Forget about the specific solution you have in mind. Keep, the customer and the context in mind, but focus only on them. And what I want to do here is do a little interactive part. So if you go to the next slide, I don't know what I have there. Yeah, that's going to work. So what I want to do is look at a practice where we can build a value proposition or start building a value proposition together. But I don't want you to be thinking from the product's perspective, because you do that all the time. And it's sort of always hard to understand what the customers want. Instead, in this case, you will be playing the customer. So the situation that I want us to play around a bit with is we are going to build a value proposition or fill out a value proposition canvas and explore its areas by building it as we go, and you being the customer. So we are going to build this for the Versus Virus incubation program, where you, meaning participating teams, are the audience, and I will be the person or the product or service provider. So we will start with the with the user side, and Biljana, if you can add the link into the chat. So if you go to the chat, there should be a link now that takes you to a mural board. So mural, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It is an online virtual whiteboarding solution. And I see already some people coming in here. So right now you mainly see a big grayness, and on the right side of it, you see a little section, customer jobs. That is one part of the customer side of the value proposition. You can zoom in and out of this by either using your mouse, or in the bottom right section, you have a little area where you can zoom in and out. And some of you are already exploring it. If you double click anywhere, then you automatically add a yellow post-it. So what I will want you to do is add yellow post-its, and you can write into them. And what I want you specifically to do is fill out what are your jobs. And jobs are not things that you are told to do. They are customer jobs in the value proposition setup can be functional, social, personal, emotional, or supporting jobs. So if you are on the mural, and I hope now everybody is there. If not, then maybe drop into the chat and we can figure out how to get you in there. But basically, because we will be working in that for the next 10, 15 minutes. So there are functional jobs that you have to, build a new business, find a valuable business model or a viable business model. It's also social because you may want to be seen as an innovator in your field. It also might be personal or emotional tasks, or emotional jobs, meaning that you want to feel that you have contributed to solving the COVID situation. And there are also so-called supporting jobs, which are just ways to get there. So in a purchasing situation, for example, a supporting task or supporting job is payment. It's not really part of what you want to achieve, but it's something that is nevertheless needed. So
very quickly, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Peter.
Sure.
Daniel, is there a way for us to show the mural so that we can see how are we working together? Do you think it's possible? Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Peter, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Good point. So what I want you to do is on the mural board, double click in the area, where this customer jobs is shown, and add some tasks that you have. Really, don't overthink what is a job, what is a customer job. Just think about the things that you need to accomplish. And I will add something, and I will add that find a viable business model is a job that you want to accomplish. And you can, as mentioned, you can add a post-it by double clicking anywhere on the screen. And once you've double clicked, you can start typing into that little post-it. And I want to just think about your own perspective, you as a participating member in the Versus Virus incubation program. What are the tasks that you need to accomplish? And I will give us 3-4 minutes to do this. I will start a counter, and just go ahead, double click, and start adding the thing. Someone asked, Biljana, someone asked if we can post the link inside the Slack channel. Can you do that as well?
In the Slack? Okay, beautiful. Slack, yes. I'm doing it as we speak.
Perfect.
Okay.
So, and in the meantime, everyone else just start double clicking. Ideally, I would ask you to do it in the customer jobs area. So on the right side of this canvas, you can scroll left and right by just dragging the space with your mouse. And you can add post-its and start typing in the tasks that you have. Again, do it on the right side, because I see that some people starting clicking and adding post-its. in various areas, but please do it here on the right side. I see that someone already appearing, create a prototype. Very good. That's a very, very valid job. So. Good
Thank
job,
you,
Daniel.
Daniel. Thank you.
So someone added platform website setup, work within a team. Very good. Again, like you did, this is really something which is very specific to what you are doing right now. It's literally what you need to get done around the versus virus incubation right now. So someone added, create a mockup for database. I will move that and put it. I moved that and put it to this customer jobs circle area. So I see some other people adding some things. Create social media audience. Good. Thank you for moving that into that space. Great. Still have a few moments. I am removing the post-its that are blank and outside of our workspace. Some other things are creating a community or a website, platform website setup, calculating potential users. What you can also do is, again, think about that there are 4 types of jobs. Most of the jobs that are now added are functional, meaning, set up a database, work within a team, find a viable business model. Also think about the social and personal, emotional jobs. Like, why are you doing this? What is it that you want to get out of it emotionally? Do you want to feel, happy with this, satisfied, contribute to the social good, help solve the COVID situation, help others?
This is pretty amazing, Peter. I love what I'm seeing. Thank you.
So show resilience. Right, I'll add 1 more minute. So let's see what kinds of other jobs that you can think of that you have to do. And you don't need to be theoretical about it. Like, literally think, what were your to-dos around versus virus? Just think of 2 things. This week, like, what did you have to do this week? And think about what made you want to participate. Just think about those things and add them to the jobs. Someone added MVP, minimum viable product. Very good. To make a social impact on the world, to create something that does not exist in the world yet. I like it. Very nice. Basically innovation. Right. So 30 more seconds there. Get COVID-free food, no time to cook. Very good. MVP, experience something new, go outside of comfort zone. So I will put a hold on that. So thank you very much for these ideas. And it just shows that this is one area of exploring what a customer wants or what a customer is, and let's stay within this board. And this is one part of what the customer is. The next part is really the pains, and I just revealed that part in the canvas as well. So now you should be seeing the pains there as well. And this is the second part of a value proposition. And there are three main types of pains: undesired outcomes, obstacles, and risks. So basically, what are the things that, let's say, you are afraid of, or that make your life hard? And again, I want to give you a few minutes. Let's make it 4 minutes to think about some pains, again, specific to you as an incubation program participant. And I give you some sort of thought starters as well, some sample questions, like what makes you feel bad or keeps you up at night regarding this program? What negative consequences do you fear? What makes progress difficult or impossible? What could be the biggest social impact on you personally that you are afraid of? What is the worst thing that could happen? So start adding some pains, and I already see people adding not meeting needs of the target group. Very nice. Time limitations, limited work due to the virus or other things, time limits. Very good. Changing the target audience. Yes. I think someone added sucking in development. It says now tucking, but I'll presume it means sucking. Fund limitations, time limitations, not making most of the opportunity, risk that I'm not building the right thing. Very good. Get pains. So yeah, these are some of the fears. We'll also maybe add some of the risks, like what is the worst thing that could happen for you specifically or for your group if you don't succeed. You can think about those as well. Or what is it currently that the incubation program sort of doesn't help you do? Again, if you can't think of anything, just scroll a bit down below this pains area and you will see the sample questions there. And you can just look at one of them and try to answer them. Being inexperienced, okay, I really like that. Stay the same. Oh, I love that. Basically, a pain is just business as usual as a pain. Risk that I'm not building the right, lack of continuity with when the pandemic ends. Okay, not meeting needs of the target group, team communication issues. Very good. I'll give 1 more minute. Stagnation. All right. So 30 more seconds. Again, just think of whenever you feel bad in your stomach about this this program that you are participating in, what is that because of? Like, maybe you can even spread it a bit wider. Maybe you don't have enough time for your family because of this extra work that you took on. That is a valid pain. All right, so you can put a hold on the pains there, like how we quickly jumped into it. So it's again, it's one part of the customer aspect. There are jobs that need to be done, and then there are pains that you have. I'll make it more specific. There are jobs that you have to do as an audience member in this case, and there are pains that you have. And the third part is the gains. So it's basically the opposite of the pains. So these are again, the lost part of the customer area, and what these are specifically, or what these can be specifically, are required, expected, desired, or unexpected gains. Now, what do I mean with that? Required gains are, what is the minimum that you want to get out of this experience that you are having right now? What is, that you least expect, like, learn something completely new, that can be a gain. And then expected and desired are sort of less specific. And one of the examples that Strategizer, so the company who actually, came up with this tool, proposed is, with a telephone, the minimum that you expect from it is to make a call. An expected thing is, for example, that it looks good. Maybe it even positions you as a forward thinker. And a desired thing might be, for example, that it is good for the environment, meaning that it doesn't pollute and it gets recycled completely. And there are unexpected gains as well. We'll get to this later on, but really required, expected, and desired just shows you that there are different levels of gains that you can get out of it. And I already see a few in here. In case you are struggling to come up with something, I will again give you a few sample questions here. So I'm adding those sample questions above right now. What are your financial expectations? What is a good social outcome? What would make your life easier as you are doing this program? What positive social consequences do you desire? What are you looking for most? What do you dream about, aspire to achieve? What does success look like for you? How do you measure that success? So think about these. There are some examples already. Time savings, maybe that can be made a bit more specific. Like, do you want to save time for yourself or for the people that you're working for? Customer success, great, okay. See other problems and solutions, very good. So really not only just solving your problems, but see how others go along as well. Making people smile, that is great. I love that game. So some other things, again, go up to those simple questions. Just look at them and try to answer one of them. Create a new career for myself, very good. Create social media audience, I think that got pulled over from the jobs. So I moved it back there. Clear role and responsibility in the team, okay. Increase quality of life of customers. Financial independence by launching a new startup. Get to know interesting people, very nice. I will add myself the example that I added, learn something completely new. Make life easier. Help people access the team. Very good. So let's put a hold on that. This was really the one side of the customer value proposition, the customer side. And I want to reveal the other side as well, which is really the product side. So, on one side, within the value proposition, we have the products and services. And what I did is I prepared a bit, just like in a cooking show, and I added sort of how I contribute to this. So just one second here to allow me to grab the prepared elements that I have. So here they are. So this is what I offer. These are my products and services. User experience design, service design, digital strategy, product and project management, startup experience, Scrum and Agile experience, communications experience, freelance experience, and executive MBA, 17 years. So this is, what I bring to the table. As in this case, I am the service provider. Another part that the product side of the customer value proposition consists of are the pain relievers. And what these do is these really answer and echo the pains of the customer from the company's perspective. So again, I prepared with a few things here. Things like, there will be a Q&A to answer questions if someone had the pain of, not getting enough information. I'm providing example with this little exercise here. I linked to previous Friday classes because, the pain might be that, I don't know where this fits. I introduce a new concept to you, bring various sources of information together. So if you feel that you're overwhelmed with information, again, you have to know your audience when you're putting together the pain relievers and the product and service. What I did is I couldn't interview you, but I did talk with Biliana before our conversation. And I actually got an understanding of where you are standing, what you are doing, what are your problems, where you need help. And, these pain relievers hopefully address some of the things that you had as pains. So, you're stuck in development. I am not the right person to do that. And we'll get to that in a minute as well. But building the wrong thing, hopefully this value proposition presentation and the tools that we discuss help you a bit better understand how to build the right product. And really the last part of the value proposition canvas is the gain creators. Just as the pain relievers address the pains that you have, the gain creators help achieve those gains that you seek. Just not having pains is not satisfactory yet. That basically brings you to like a neutral state. Where you want to get is get more out of this, get something positive. And so ideally, the game creators do something around that, and then there's these things. So what I did is that we are doing co-creation to have a first try. So, it means that you can actually already see what creating a value proposition feels like. It's very different to just hear about it than to actually participate. Hopefully, I will show you how to waste less time. I won't say that you won't waste any, but how to waste less. Hopefully there is some element of fun in this. Maybe Shrek helped us with that. And, I also provide an example on how, that you can relate to. Also, I added a game creator. I offer a free hour of consulting to the first team who writes me an email. So in the Slack channel, I believe my email was shared with you already earlier. And I mentioned regarding the gains that there are required, expected, desired, and unexpected gains. So unexpected gains are not something that an audience comes up with, by themselves. It is something that is told them and like, well, this is possible. Awesome. I never even thought that would be good. So, it is a surprise. It is something potentially unique idea or a completely new paradigm in the market, or just something that you're not expecting, like getting a free hour of consulting from me. So, let's see if I do get that email and who I get it from. And really, I really like, Daniel, how you were zooming in and around and zooming in and out of the canvas. This is sort of what we've built in, I think, like 15 minutes. When putting together my side of the Post-it, so sort of what I am offering, I tried to take little time, not much more than what you had for putting together the right side, meaning that it's not super vetted, it's not super detailed. It's like a first version, a quick draft to get something out there. And let's now return to the slides that we were looking at earlier. And ideally already, Danielle, if we can jump there, perfect. If we can jump there to the next slide. So yeah, this is the value proposition canvas. So as I mentioned, this is my strategizer. It is one tool to build a value proposition. By no means is it the only one. And it's, it's not the Bible that you have to follow. It's one solution. It's great to get started, and, guides your way. I added those main areas that we discussed on the mural as well. I mean, customer jobs should be functional or can be functional, social, personal, and supporting jobs. So don't only think of things you have to get done, also think of things, how you feel, how you want to feel, or how others want you, or how you want others to see you. Regarding pains, there are undesired outcomes, obstacles, and risks. So think of all those. And within the gains of the customer, they are required, experienced, expected, desired, and unexpected gains, as we played around with it. And this is really the first side. This is the customer side. And the other side, which is sort of more the product side, you have the products and services, which really are sort of the product, services, features. They can be physical or tangible. They can be intangible, like intellectual property or something, an algorithm. It can be digital, like interfaces, or financial. And then there are the pain relievers and gain creators, which connect respectively to the pains that the customer has and to the gains. Now, if you go to the next slide, this is what you end up with after after a session where you come up with some of these ideas. You ideally have a lot of post-its, so many ideally that it doesn't even fit on a canvas, and they're all over the place. There's a good place to be, because then you have ideas. But we looked at, like, someone said that they are stuck in development, and I don't offer development. How does that work? So if you go to the next slide, actually these jobs, pains and gains, and also the product, services, and pain relievers, gain creators should be prioritized. There are important jobs and insignificant jobs. There are extreme pains and there are moderate pains. There are essential gains and there are nice to have gains. So what you need to do is, of course, first identify with your audience what areas they have, and then how important are those for them. And then what you have to do is also sort of brainstorm what either you already have as a company or what you want to build, and look at what are the priorities there, maybe from your perspective, like what are the essential and what are nice to have. But the better way to approach is, what are essential and nice to have for your audience? Similarly, do the same for pain relievers and gain creators. What are essential elements and what are nice to have elements? So you will then have an order. And even here, once these are ordered, it doesn't mean that you will be addressing every pain. No company will address every pain, and no company will address every gain. You will need to pick a few that you focus in on. You might even pick a few that you decide not to address on at all. A big part of strategy is knowing what you do not do. So, I, for example, do not do development. So, that's not something that I will be offering or I will be able to offer as a pain reliever to your teams. If you go to the next slide, this is sort of, for me, that when it comes to startups or ideas or whatever, people usually by default think of two things. They either think that they have this big idea or they have features in their mind. And, these are part of the value proposition. The big idea is really that unexpected gain that we talked about. My big idea for this case specifically was to offer a free hour of consulting for one team. Not a huge idea, I have to admit, but it's not a huge idea. It's just a big idea. And then features, is just a list of what you do. But this is what, as far as most startups or companies or teams very often get to. And then they completely forget about, the gains, the pains, the customer jobs, the gain creators, and the pain relievers. So it's important to keep in mind that when you think of features, when you think of a big idea, it's just, yes, it's important, it's needed, but it's just part of what you need. And this takes us to the last part, which is, when is a value proposition done well? So if you go to the next slide, and we can actually start digging right into the next slides. Bad news. It is done right when it is done for every audience. So we could have broken down today's exercise into only team leaders. I don't actually know if your teams have team leaders, but we could do that. We could have done, okay, we're going to address only team leaders for who a job is to keep the team motivated, for example. Or we could do it also for team members for who a job might be, satisfy the requirements of the team lead. You also have audiences, for example, investors, like what are their jobs, what are they looking for? So there's many audiences already for a team like yourself, and then imagine, already mature organizations. So you'll have to do one for every audience. Next slide. A value proposition is done well when it is practiced continuously, meaning that a value proposition is designed, it is then tested, and then that test is evaluated, and then it's fed back into designing the value proposition and fine-tuning it, and it is a continuous circle, like you've heard in the presentations already about iterations and all that. So this is true here as well, is continually practiced. And if you feel now that, oh my god, I have to do this for all the audiences and I have to do it continuously, like this is a lot of work. And yes, but it is, just doing things is one part of creating a new service or a new product. You have to know what you are doing and for whom, and this is what this exercise has to answer. And it just needs to become, if not part of the everyday, but maybe the every week job. The next slide is that we mentioned here testing, so it needs to be tested. Now I wonder if there's any ideas from anyone how a testing can be done. You could write it into the chat or just shout it out. There's no extra bonus points for this. But you've heard about user testing already. So any ideas about how a value proposition testing can go? Awkward silence. You guys are actually super lucky because, again, Strategizer, the company who put this together and with whom I have no affiliation, by the way, if you go to the next slide, so just this week they put out a short article about how to test value propositions on a website. And this proposal is not new at all. This has been done, for a long time, basically putting out a mock website. What they did nicely here is that, a value proposition statement, which is like a short sentence, can be the headline on the website. And then you can have other areas from the value proposition canvas that we've been looking at. Have one area where you list the pains, have another area where you list the features of your product, and then have another area where you list the games. That is the Super Mario after eating the flower. So, and you add then a call to action to make sure that people actually can sort of react to this value proposition, and a currency, meaning a kind of payment. And in this case, the payment is just submitting your email address. It costs nothing to customers, but you can already interpret it as a sign of the value proposition being appreciated and accepted. And of course, there's a lot more testing, there are a lot of different types of testing that can be done. And almost anything that you were told in the user testing class or hour can be used here. But this is a good, I linked to the article here as well. If you go to the next slide, what do we want out of this testing? Well, we want fit. We want three types of fits. We want a fit on paper, a fit in the market, and a fit in the bank. And fit on paper just means that you describe your value proposition to someone and they say, well, that sounds interesting. Or also the response to a website like we had on the top, if you get some email signups, that means that there are people who are interested on paper. In market means that you have customers. When your product is in market, people are signing up, people are using your product or service. And in the bank means that people are using that service, they are paying money for it, and they are paying enough money for it to balance the costs that you incur. In these kinds of setups, in this COVID situation, maybe that doesn't mean that it's actually the people who are paying it. Maybe it's the government who are paying, or maybe it's investors who are paying for it, or any type of other organization that gives you the money, not necessarily the audience themselves. Next slide. When is a value proposition successful? When you consult rather with customers versus only with experts. So an example here about superhero movies. So Scorsese, Coppola, and Cronenberg are obviously great directors, but they are saying, superhero movies are not cinema, they are despicable. And whoever says, Batman was a supreme cinema art doesn't know what the fuck they are talking about. And, balance that with the fact that just the Marvel movies average $1 billion per film. If you take superhero movies and talk with experts, you'll get the response on the left. If you take it to the market, you may get the response on the right. So decide what kind of feedback you want, but at one point, listening to what your customers are saying is important. Next slide. Again, how can we do an awesome value proposition? Like any message, a value proposition is good if it is simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and involves stories. I would fine-tune that a value proposition is good if it includes elements that are simple, unexpected, because your value proposition is not your website tagline. As we mentioned earlier, and we saw in our exercise, it consists of many elements, but you have to be able to dial it down to something that summarizes it in a relatively easy way. So if you think back about what I wrote at the beginning, or one of the manifestations of my value proposition for this class specifically, was that I'm not the expert, we are the expert together, you, your customers, and myself. That's potentially unexpected. So, at least I tick one of the boxes. And you don't need to tick all of these boxes, but the more you tick, the better. And then the last part, or last slide, you have a value proposition. Now what do you do with it? The answer is nothing and everything. So the value proposition, as you saw, is not something very concrete. It is always changing. It's always expanding. And it's something that itself is relatively complex to get to. So it's work. So don't try to put your entire value proposition on your website. Don't try to put the whole thing into your sales decks or explain the process through which you arrived at your value proposition to the investors. They simply all do not care. You should be the one who cares most about it and be able to use it. And that's where the everything part comes in, because you should use parts of your value proposition in everything you say or do, internally or externally. Just like the vision, mission, and strategy, it should be a next layer of what informs what you do. You should keep this dual focus of focusing on yourself and the other side, the customers, as we turned around at the very beginning. And also you should be continuously revisiting, challenging the value proposition that you came up with, expanding to new audiences, and refining it, like seeing, okay, is it still relevant? Can we expand? Are there new gains? I think that's especially important in COVID-related situations where things are often changing by the week. New things are coming up, some things are being resolved. What is it that's still relevant? And that's it. We have a few minutes only for questions, but if there's anything, then that's all, folks. Thank you for the attention. And I wonder if I received emails. And over to you, Biljana.
Thank you so much, Peter. I found this really amazing. I have a quick question. Is Mural free?
Mural has a free element to it. I am at this point using the free version of Mural. There's also Miro, which is a similar tool.
Mm-hmm.
So if your team wants to work, on the web, do brainstorming exercises or something similar, it's a great tool because there's quite a lot of things that you can do. You can just dive right in.
We have Claudia, who says she has already sent you an email.
Let's see if she was the first one.
And I did post your email in the chat box.
I saw. I'm already afraid.
No need to be afraid. Hey guys, who has a question? Please unmute yourself and ask.
Well, I want to say, I think the best part was the last slide, because you said what to do with it and how to do it, what to do, how and when. So that was perfect. And I think most of this is like you said, you do it for yourself, and then size for yourself, and that, and was fun to participate. Interactive was.
Happy to hear. You were cutting a bit out, but I think we got the gist of it. Anyone else with a question?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
This is Burju. Hi. Thank you for the eye-opening presentation. Question about different market segments or target groups. So should we create this canvas separately for each target group?
Exactly. So that's what was one of the last slides, is it is done well when you have one for every audience. So even if you look at sort of my little monologue, it was specific for this. Whereas cooperation, is important in every aspect that I do. Doing it specifically for COVID, and being able to explain things, complex things, in a relatively easy manner, is something specific for this interaction. And so you as well should have something specific to each of your audiences, although they will need to be connected. There are organizations who have completely different products or services for the different audiences that they address. Something that's small and new, you should probably start. And that's why I also added sort of segmentation targeting. I think is a very important element. There's this saying, especially in startups, that you should find, instead of trying to have a big audience who are sort of okay with your product, find some people who love your product and start focusing on them and grow from there. So probably that's a good start for something or someone with limited funds, or at the very beginning of the journey. You can't be everything to everyone. But ideally, yes, you should have a different one. And, you can start small, like start with one. So like, as you saw, we spent less than half an hour on a first exercise. Within an hour, you can have something that's, that's useful, usable, that you can start with and then grow from there for the first audience. And, fine tune that. And when you feel that you're ready to address another one, you can do that as well.
Great. Thank you. We'll do that.
Perfect. In addition to that, is if you are dealing with business to business audiences, and this is again something that's not specific to value propositions, this is active in sales, in marketing, and many other areas. In B2B, you have to look at the individuals as well. So there are people who are decision makers, people who are blockers, people who are influencers. So if you are dealing with in a business to business setup, then you might want to identify sort of your whole, set of buyers, and how, and looking at the influence that they have and what you are able to bring them.
We were a bit confused about that, because we have both B2B and B2C. So in which level should we do this canvas? So let's say we are collaborating with the University of Zurich. That's our customer, because they will be paying us. But they have students in there who are the beneficiaries, for example. But the canvas should be created for the university.
It should be created for the university and also for the end users of it. Exactly. Yes. Okay. I mean, it depends also on the importance, because educational institutions specifically, they can be very benevolent, and they might not want anything more out of this than value for their students. And then what you can actually do in this case is maybe hop through them and first think of, okay, what are the values that I'm bringing to my to the students? Because the school will be happy if they are happy, and they won't have any additional things. It's something that you'll need to see for your specific service.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
No worries. Maybe a last question. or if there's nothing else, then it just leaves me to find out who was the first one to write.
We have George who is saying, or Jorge who is saying excellent stuff. So thank you very much, Peter. I had a lot of fun looking as things were being co-created in front of my eyes.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot. As you know, everybody, you do have Peter's email. You can get in touch with him. What is coming are two big things. We are coming next Friday. We have time management as a leadership act. You have been asking us to help you with your time management, and here we are. You will be listening to Louise Lugat, who is an exceptional positive energy coach, and she has done a lot of time management training for the big corporates in Switzerland. That is coming next Friday. And as all of you know, on the 6th of November will be Demo Day, where you will be pitching your projects to foundations, organizations, partners, and investors. So get ready, do the work, and I'll see you next Friday. Have a lovely weekend, and bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
So good to see your faces.